Maoist Rebel News fans, no doubt you're probably aware a drought has broken out in the DPRK. Now, the western coastal regions have had very little rain since April 27. Now, officials there have said they've already begun work and plans to start irrigating the area in order to compensate for this lack of rainfall. Now, the South Pyongan province has had Associated Press journalists go through the area, and they said what they saw there was parched and cracked ground and a lot of farmers complaining from the lack of water. Now, a DPRK farmer and Song Min of the Tokhae Cooperative Farm in the Nampo area did say this to the Associated Press. "I've been working at the farm for more than 30 years, but I have never experienced this kind of severe drought." Now, in order to get a real estimation of the scale of the problem, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization has not yet been in the area to actually see the extent of the problem. However, they are expected to come along in the next week or so. UN countries thus far have been refusing food aid, and while they're enforcing a blockade. As usual, there is a problem, and they are refusing to help because the people that need help disagree with them on some kind of ideology, which defeats the entire purpose of aid and humanitarian work, which is fine, because I think the DPRK can actually handle it. Now, interestingly, while they're declaring sanctions against them so that they can't get stuff, they're also withholding aid. And largely the reason why a lot of aid is needed is because there's a blockade, which makes it seem like the cause and effect are actually the same thing. Now, interesting to note that when the Associated Press article does go on to explain why there was a lack of aid coming from the West, they actually expose their own hypocrisy over the matter, and not so much hypocrisy, but the completely fraudulent nature of the reason for placing the new sanctions. In February, the U.S. reversed course and agreed to provide 240,000 metric tons of food aid in exchange for a freeze in nuclear missile activities. However, the deal collapsed after North Korea launched a long-range rocket last month in what is called a failed attempt to send a satellite into space to study the weather. They will literally say it's against missiles and nuclear weapons, and then admits that the whole reason they pulled the aid was because they launched a rocket, which is not a weapon, and a satellite, a weather satellite, which is not a weapon. Of course, it'd be nice to know how much that weather satellite would have actually helped now. Maybe things could have been easier, but who knows. Again, we don't know because it never made it up. But you can definitely see it here. They're literally admitting that North Korea didn't actually do anything wrong. Now, once the sanctions were put in place, the DPRK government pretty much just went ahead and said, you know, the hell with you, now we're going to do what it was you were banning us from doing. Well, if you're already suffering the consequences for doing what it is that they were supposedly trying to keep you from doing, then you might as well go ahead and do it because it now no longer matters. Now, it's interesting here to show the completely disingenuous nature of the West over this issue. Now, this is what the U.S. envoy for North Korea, Glenn Davies, said. "The United States would like to get to a place where we could once again contemplate providing nutritional assistance to North Korea. Sadly, that is not the case right now, in the wake of their decision in March to announce the rocket launch." Now, it's so funny because they didn't do anything that violated any kind of rules. It did not violate any agreements. They launched a rocket, not a missile, and not nuclear weapons. So no breach was actually made. But this was planned from the beginning just to stop them from trying to develop any kind of space exploration technology. It's completely ludicrous. They did not do anything wrong. This was all intended to punish them anyway. Now, here's the point that I would really like to make on this. Now that there's a problem of a drought, the government has stepped up with collective efforts in order to alleviate the situation. Digging new irrigation stuff in order to get water to the affected areas. A collective effort to get water from areas that do have it to the area that doesn't have it. A collective effort to try to solve the problem. However, had this been the other way around in a capitalist country, people who did have enough water would be sitting there wringing their hands over the amount of extra money that they're going to make now that there's a shortage in the regular supply of food. So in socialism, you try to take care of the problem and make sure it doesn't get worse and try to deal with it the best you can. In capitalism, you sit there wringing your hands, happy about the new amount of money that's coming through. It was the same thing to deal with Stalin in the Ukraine. There was a shortage due to the weather. So kulaks decided, hey, let's make some more money and let's withhold food or only grow enough to feed ourselves in order to raise the price. And then they started collectivizing. Well, screw you. If you're going to try to starve people to death, then yeah, you deserve to have your farm confiscated and then run collectively. If you try to starve people to make more money, you got it coming. So there's socialism stepping in to take care of the problem. And while capitalism was very happy just to sit there and make money off of the hunger, malnutrition, and even possible starvation that could arise as a result. This shows the definite superior position of socialism. And as usual, the fact that there is a drought in the DPRK will of course be blamed on communism and of course will be blamed on Kim Jong-un, while completely ignoring the fact that there are droughts going through Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The most visible in people's memory is the recent one in Somalia that was causing mass hunger, where people were running away from the paradise of a lack of government regulation to go to Ethiopia to find food. Of course, at no point did any of the pro-capitalists actually blame anything that had to do with the social or economic system in Somalia for the drought. And to a degree you could, but mostly it was caused by a shift in weather patterns as the same cause of the problems in all the other countries that are suffering from droughts right now, a change in weather patterns. However, because it's North Korea, the weather problem will be blamed on Kim Jong-un, because we all know he is the angry weather god that controls things like this. It's a very typical stance that the media and historians tend to take. Communist countries, their leaders, have the power over the weather and thus punish their people for no reason.